Hi, everybody. I'm here with Chris O'Connell, and we're talking about recruiter enablement. So, Chris, thank you for taking the time to join me today. You've got a really interesting story, so let's start with that. Give us a bit about you and your background.
Thanks for having me on, Adam. Yeah, delighted to. So I start off with my childhood. I was born in a caravan, and my dad came home from working on the railways all night. My mum had left me, my brother in there. I was 2, he was 3. Left us there all night. So I was abandoned by my parents, kind of thing, fostered. And then my dad remarried, and she was abusive to me. So my childhood was very difficult and trauma-led, and we didn't have any money and all this kind of stuff. And kind of fell into recruitment, joined the S3 group. Most people know who they are, £1.4 billion company, 3,000 consultants or 4,000 consultants worldwide. I became Computer Futures' UK top biller, then became S3's worldwide top biller, billing nearly £1 million a year, placing project program management, change management contractors. Absolutely loved it. And anyone knows S3, hardcore sales environment, but I loved it, and it really set me up for where I am today. So after 5 years of that, left there, set up my own business in 2003. In 9 years, got that to 100 people, £30 million turnover, 14 industry awards, 3 offices. I was South West Entrepreneur of the Year, a couple of million quid EBITDA. We were Virgin Fast Track 100 awards 3 times in a row, Sunday Times, 3-star Best Company awards in a row. It's just one of these businesses. People say now it's one of the best, if not the best recruitment business out there. Our process, our average fee was like 13, 14 grand, and 10, 15 years ago, that was good. So built that, the culture was very strong. And then my business partner walked in one day and said he didn't want to do it anymore. So I had to find a buyer and did a private equity deal. The first year was really good. The second year, it all fell apart. Absolute disaster. And the whole business kind of fractured. It's a long story, but it affected me. I had to take the private equity vehicle to court. It took me 4 years, cost me 600 grand. I had to settle out of court for something that was not very good, which affected me. So in 18 months, I lost a massive multi-million-pound business, lost 7 houses, lost access to my children, got divorced, 3 suicide attempts. Awful time. When I came back onto LinkedIn about 3 years ago, I was invited to do a webinar on the subject of my choice. I chose vulnerability and leadership, and it kind of blew up. I got a name for myself, and then started to get like 2 or 3 million views a month on LinkedIn. So I talked about how I scaled my business, talked about how I lost my business, and just had this human kind of approach to leadership. And since then, I've helped over 50 recruitment businesses scale. So I'm a business coach, NED, to the recruitment sector, where I work with the owners and the founders. I do board meetings, I do mission, vision, values, I do purpose, but also the mechanics of business development, account management. So last week I was doing a board meeting, and just now to come off the phone on teaching people how to spec in candidates. So I'm a bit like a Swiss Army knife, where I love the fundamental mechanics of recruitment, but also the strategy. More often than not, it's about getting people on the train, understanding the why and the purpose. But fundamentally, I'm pleased that BD's making a bit of a renaissance now, because we kind of need to get back onto some of the old school ways as well as the new ways. So there's a long introduction for you.
Well, I've got quite a lot of questions about your introduction. So I just want to ask about your just like your childhood. Question is, did your childhood set you up with considerable drive as an adult and like need to go and be successful?
Absolutely. At the time, obviously, being abandoned by your mum and then being abused by your stepmom is not exactly a great introduction to the world. But what it absolutely did to me is give me that drive. I just wasn't fearful of anybody. So when I was on the phone cold calling, I didn't see the CEO as inferior or superior. I just thought I was on that level. It kind of forced me to stand on my own 2 feet. And I think when people have that adversity, I think actually it can be seen as a good thing. If you harness it in the right way, so when I got to 5 million, 10 million, 15 million, it was always like, there was no horizon. So in a way, it was a bit of a gift.
Okay, I'm actually driven by a lot of things that are connected to my childhood as well, but I didn't have what you had. I had very, very different circumstances, but I am entirely driven by my childhood. So I was just interested to hear, that specific story. So the subject of the YouTube channel is around recruiter enablement, which could mean lots of different things to different people. It's really about the basic summary is, how do we enable recruiters to be really great at their jobs? So big open question. How do we enable recruiters to be better at their jobs?
I mean, people say recruitment's changed over the last 5, 10, 15 years, and it probably has. There's lots more automation, there's AI, there's tech stacks, there's all sorts of stuff. And I think it's, look, it's important to have things like, not to name drop products, but Sourcebreaker, LinkedIn, they're all really, really, really important. But for me, it boils down to mindset. It boils down to, having that attitude where you're not fearful of making the phone call. You're not putting the client on a pedestal. So how do you enable them? I think it's making sure that that they're going into their interaction with their client or their candidate with the mindset of, I am a specialist, I can help you, you're not superior to me. And it's about articulating that in the right way, the opening statement when you want a phone call to somebody. I think where recruitment consultancies go wrong is that they get bogged down with all this tech and all automation, and they remove the human aspects. Most people buy from people. So yes, the tech automation is really important, but it's teaching and coaching people how to actually interact with customers, how to have conversations, how to objection handle, how to be intuitive and see an opportunity, how to close. So I think it's a combination of those factors.
I mean, that is really interesting and different what you're saying there, because I've done 125 interviews with people, and a lot of what we've talked about has been, how do we automate processes and give recruiters time back to focus on only, things that they can do. But I've had other people on who have said, yeah, I mean, we just need to automate the job of a recruiter entirely. I think there could be a very big divergence over the next couple of years around how a staffing business does it and how an internal team does it. And I think it's the internal teams who are much more likely to go, let's automate the heck out of everything. And the staffing agencies who can make it as human as possible are going to be the ones who really win.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, as an example, coming from S3, marketing was a swear word, and I was the guy making 150 calls a day to a butcher, baker, and a candle maker, bashing the phones, and nurturing and personal branding was like, nah, whatever. But I built my entire business now, my new business, on doing some quality content on LinkedIn, nurturing my customers, winning their hearts and minds, being a bit vulnerable. And I get calls and emails now saying, when can you start? Because people know me. So I'm not saying that's the personal branding and LinkedIn and that kind of stuff is the only way, but I think where it has changed is that, and people are not so, companies are not so impressed by the amazing website and the 4,000 staff and the automation. They actually want to speak to a person. So I really think it's a ticket. Yeah.
And okay, what if you were? I mean, I know you obviously do a lot of this for a living, so I'm not gonna ask you to like give you free stuff here. But like, if you're talking to the CEO of a recruitment business, what are the maybe top 3 things that you're like? Let's say they're not doing great. What are the top 3 things that you're going to be like encouraging them to look at in more detail?
Oh, firstly, understand from them why they're doing what they're doing. They say, Chris, come in. We've got 10 people. We want to get to 100. We've got 5 million. We want to get to 50 million. I say, well, why? More often than not, it's time with their family. But ultimately, where they tend to go wrong is they try to be all things to all people. So they're running around doing it, they're painting the scene and doing everything. Is what I do is I identify what their strengths are, give them 3 to 5 key objectives that are aligned to what the business needs, and they execute those, and they're actually happier. And then it's about delegating the other stuff. So it's about understanding their individual strengths and weaknesses, removing their ego, and setting a very, very clear vision. Then it's about, I've always built my businesses on a third new business, a third where you've got 1 or 2 placements, and the third kind of key account. So they say we're struggling with BD, but more often than not, there's so much business within their existing clients. So we do a 2-year analysis of where they've had a CV job or interview at, and go back in there and cross-sell and upsell and try to develop it that way. And then just map out the markets. There's too many businesses out there that say they're specialists and they're not. They're doing entire countries, and it's just it's less is more, inch wide, mile deep. And lastly, I'd say job control. I think that there's so much time wasted by consultants working on jobs that I think are qualified and great. They're not. They might have qualified the JD, but there's no interview slots, there's no exclusivity, there's no retain, there's no. And it's actually, I'd sooner work on 3 or 4 jobs that I know the client's going to buy from me, and there's a schedule in place and there's control, as opposed to working on. So it's just kind of just working a bit smarter, I think.
Wonderful. Okay, Chris, thank you very much for your time today. I've really enjoyed talking to you and finding out more. And I look forward to hopefully seeing you again soon.
Good to have on. Thanks, Adam.